This book is called On the Tex-Mex Border. It's a Time for Kids reader, special edition. This was put together by Angela Shelf Medearis, the kitchen diva and children's author from Texas. The state government of Texas calls these counties that are colored in the border counties. They run along this border, which is the Rio Grande River, separating Texas from Mexico. The Harcourt School Publishing Group is responsible for printing this special edition of Time for Kids. In the picture here, the caption says, "A trolley-like bus called the Border Jumper takes people across the border at El Paso, Texas." El Paso is right there on the map. Borders often separate people, places, and even things that are different. The border between Texas and Mexico doesn't entirely separate the people of the two nations. People on both sides of the border are much alike. Most of the people on the Texas side are Tejanos. Tejanos are Texans with a Mexican background. They share the same history and culture as the people on the Mexican side of the border. They eat the same foods. Many practice the same religion. The Texas border area is not totally American and not totally Mexican. It is a mixture of both. Sometimes borders are like walls. They keep people on either side apart. The Tex-Mex border is more like a gate that allows people and goods to pass back and forth easily. On an average day, about 14,000 trucks cross the border. They carry everything from auto parts to freshly picked tomatoes. Before the COVID pandemic, 800,000 people would walk or drive across the border each day. Those people cross to work, to shop, and to visit friends and family. Two captions here. For this photo, the caption says, "In Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, vendors often set up their stands near the border." And this caption says, "From Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, one can see downtown El Paso, Texas, and its surrounding areas, including the mountains." City pairs. The population of the border area is growing, especially in border cities. There are pairs of cities all along the border. Many towns on the United States side have a sister city across the border in Mexico. Thousands of people cross between the pairs of cities each day. El Paso, Texas, and Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, are sister cities. They are the largest of the border communities. Almost 2 million people live in the two cities. Laredo, Texas, is the busiest border city. It is right across the Rio Grande from its sister city, Nuevo Laredo, Mexico. The international bridge that connects Laredo and Nuevo Laredo opened in 2000. Thousands of trucks rumble across the bridge, carrying everything from crude oil and vegetables to cars and cell phones. The border towns of McAllen, Texas, and Reynosa, Mexico, are also sister cities. The fast-growing region is busy with trade, tourism, and manufacturing. Many Americans like to visit Reynosa. Its shops and markets sell handmade jewelry, ceramics, fabrics, and glass. The Texas-Mexico border area shares one culture because the entire area was once part of Mexico. The country that is now Mexico and the southwestern United States were part of a Spanish colony called New Spain hundreds of years ago. Spain ruled this vast territory from the 1500s until the early 1800s. Most of the people of New Spain lived in what is now central Mexico, around Mexico City. The area along today's Texas-Mexico border was part of the northern frontier of New Spain. Thousands of square miles of empty wilderness. There are 2 photo captions on this page. This one identifies Stephen F. Austin as the man in the old-fashioned photograph there. And this one has the caption that says, "This painting shows the United States' capture of Monterey, Mexico during the Mexican-American War." In the old days, some Spanish and Mexican settlers lived on New Spain's northern frontier in the 1700s and 1800s. Most of them lived at missions or religious settlements run by Catholic priests. Life was difficult there. The settlers had many battles with Native American tribes who lived in the area first. As a result, few settlers from central Mexico wanted to live in the northern borderlands. Life in Mexico's northern borderlands changed when Mexico won its independence from Spain in 1821. However, even in the early 1800s, the population in the frontier area grew slowly. So the Mexican government invited people from the United States, called Anglo-Americans, to settle this wilderness area. The government of Mexico gave Anglo-American leaders such as Stephen F. Austin gifts of land. In return, Austin brought families from the United States to live on the Mexican side of the border in 1822. Mexican pioneers such as Martin de Leon also brought Mexican settlers to live in the borderlands. Mexico welcomed the new settlers, at least at first. However, Mexico wanted the new settlers to follow Mexican laws and traditions. The United States settlers had other ideas, and conflicts soon developed. The Mexicans were on one side, and people from the United States were on the other. The United States settlers refused to follow Mexican laws, so the Mexican government tried to stop Anglo-Americans from settling in its territory. There was no stopping them, though. By 1836, there were 30,000 people from the United States in Texas. The Anglo settlers wanted to live under the government of the United States. Many Tejanos in Texas also wanted more freedom from the strict control of Mexico. Finally, there was a revolt by the Texans. The result? Texas won its independence from Mexico in 1836 and first became their own nation, and then later joined the United States as a state in 1845. That didn't mean, however, that all was peaceful. The United States and Mexico disagreed about their border. This led to the Mexican-American War, which was fought between 1846 and 1848. Mexico lost the war and was forced to give up half of its territory to the United States. What was once northern Mexico became the southwestern United States. 2 photo captions. First, this one says, "Tacos appeal to people on both sides of the Tex-Mex border." This one says, "A Cinco de Mayo, or 5th of May, party gives these girls in San Antonio, Texas, a chance to wear traditional clothing and celebrate their Mexican heritage." Mexican customs. The Mexican-American War fixed a new border between the United States and Mexico. However, it also divided 2 groups, the people of northern Mexico and the people of southern Texas. Suddenly, friends and families who had the same roots had an international boundary dividing them. The number of Mexicans in the border area continued to increase in the 1900s. Some people stayed south of the border, but many crossed to the U.S. side. Many of them came north to find a safe place to live during the Mexican Revolution of 1910. Others came to work on farms after World War II. At first, most Mexican immigrants thought they would return to Mexico after a few years, but many decided to stay in the United States. Because the border area was once part of Mexico, and many Tejanos still live there, Mexican culture is strong there. Even on the U.S. side of the border, most people speak English and Spanish. Folk dances, music, games, and stories show the influence of Mexican and Native American traditions. Tex-Mex food is found everywhere in this area. The food is a mix of Spanish and Native American foods and cooking styles. Tex-Mex dishes use ingredients such as corn, beans, tomatoes, peppers, squash, beef, and pork. Popular dishes include tacos, chalupas, quesadillas, tostados, fajitas, and frijoles. Do some of these sound familiar? Although these are traditional Mexican foods, they are now common in the United States. The caption on this page says, "People buy and sell colorful flowers for the Day of the Dead festival." And on this page, the caption says, "Children dressed as Martha and George Washington join friends to help celebrate the Abrazos ceremony in Laredo, Texas." Catholicism is the main religion of Tejanos and of people who live along the border. Mexican Catholics include some Native American customs and beliefs in their religion. It is easy to see these traditions in religious celebrations along the border. For example, Dia de los Muertos, or the Day of the Dead, combines the Catholic religion's All Souls Day with Native American beliefs. People celebrate the memory of dead loved ones with brightly painted wood, plastic, or paper skeletons. They bake sweetbreads called pan de muerto, or bread of the dead. The bread is served at meals held to remember past family members. This is not a sad occasion. It is a joyful time of feasting, parades, and parties to honor those who have died. George Washington's birthday is one of the most popular festivals on both sides of the border. The tradition began in Laredo in 1898. The founders of Laredo wanted a festival based on a tradition from the United States. The founders decided to celebrate the birthday of the first president of the United States. It started as a 2-day festival to honor George Washington. Now it is a 16-day birthday celebration of unity between Laredo and its sister city, Nuevo Laredo, Mexico. About 300,000 people went to the George Washington birthday celebration recently. Among the many fun events is the Abrazos ceremony on the bridge connecting the towns. A girl and a boy from Laredo and Nuevo Laredo exchange abrazos, which is Spanish for hugs, at the center of the bridge. Government officials from both countries join in. The celebration is a symbol of friendship between the United States and Mexico. 3 captions here. This caption under the photograph says, "Workers in the Rio Grande Valley harvest celery that will soon be headed to markets across the United States." Underneath this photo, the words say, "Agreements between the United States and Mexico helped make this factory possible." The woman in the picture is a worker in Tijuana, Mexico, who is putting together a mechanical device for a U.S. company. And this little chart, TFK by the numbers, and it says, on a typical day, the border is crossed by 432 tons of bell peppers, 16,250 tons of toasters, 283,000 tons of light bulbs. Before the pandemic, 800,000 people, 1 million barrels of crude oil, and roughly $51 million worth of auto parts. To market. The people living on the border make their living in various ways. Many of the fruits and vegetables in United States supermarkets come from the border areas. Many of the farm workers who pick these crops are migrants. They move from farm to farm, working in the fields, following the crops of each season. Migrant farm workers who live in southern Texas and northern Mexico travel north to pick fruits and vegetables during the summer and into the fall. The border area of the South Texas Valley is home to the largest group of migrant farm workers in the United States. Without the labor of these farm workers, people in the United States would not have as many fruits and vegetables to choose from at their supermarket. The border is also a center of international trade between Mexico and the United States. New laws make it easier for both Mexico and U.S. companies to do business along the border. In 1988, the border cities of McAllen and Reynosa had fewer than 20 factories. About 16,000 people worked in them. Today, instead of 20 factories, there are 209 factories, and they employ about 65,000 workers. Many of these factories are what are called maquiladoras. Maquiladoras are U.S. factories and businesses, most of which are just across the Texaco border in Mexico. Workers' wages, the amount of money they get paid, workers' wages are lower in Mexico than in the United States. As a result, the factories in Mexico have lower costs than they would have in the United States. More than 3,200 of these factories operate along the border. Maquiladoras produce many items such as electronic devices, car parts, plastic materials, clothing. Mexico has more than 10 million full-time workers. 1 million of them, 10%, work in the border maquiladoras. Trucks take the finished projects back across the border, and the products are then sold in the United States. Photograph here is of an officer in uniform, and the caption explains who he is. An officer with the U.S. Border Patrol in Laredo, Texas, works in the desert. A border forever? The laws of the border have created many jobs, too. The Border Patrol and the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service, INS, try to keep people from crossing the border and entering the U.S. without permission. Many Mexicans cross the border every day with temporary work permits. Many of them become permanent residents of the border area, often crossing back and forth between the sister cities. Some Mexicans come to the border area because they cannot find work in the central or southern part of Mexico. Some of these people cross the border into Texas hoping to find jobs. Jobs in the United States often pay higher wages than the jobs pay in Mexico. One last caption. The flags of Mexico, that's this one on the top. The flag of Texas, that's this one. And the United States flag, that's this one, of course. These three flags are waving in a strong border breeze. Is the border between Mexico and the United States disappearing? You can still see it on a map. You can follow it on the news. But as more and more Mexicans move into southern Texas, the two cultures do continue to blend together. It is a unique region, and it has a vibrant culture. Maybe the people in this region are creating a new definition of a border. Not a place that separates people, but a place that brings them together. If you've read or had someone read to you other issues of Time for Kids, you know that these magazines or special editions love to add questions. Here are the questions. What does Tejano mean? Do you remember when I explained that? This question is, describe the tradition of Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. This one says, why do Mexican Americans in Laredo, Texas, and Mexicans in Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, celebrate George Washington's birthday? This one, number 4, says, who are migrant workers? And this one is not one you can go back and find in the story. You have to think about it. But it's a good question. It says, would you like to live in a border town? And then explain why or why not. Finally, explore your borders as a chance to learn more. Using the library or the internet, explore the way the boundaries of your town, county, or state were decided. So maybe you live in a border sister city on the northern border, like Detroit, Michigan, and Windsor, Canada. Maybe you live in New Hampshire and you have a border with a couple states and you're close to Quebec. You can look into that and find out how those boundaries were decided. Summarize your findings in a report, a map, or a diagram, something you could do at school, and then share your summary with the class. Learning more about the border. This special report from Time for Kids has been called On the Tex-Mex Border, and it was written by Angela Shelf Medearis.